back for Women's History Month with a controversial topic, and that topic is God or the Bible or both sexist? So why do people think that? So right off the bat, people immediately go to passages in the Bible where it talks about strict rules for women and their periods that was imposed in the time of Moses. I think also people look at some of the pronouns used in the Bible, and there's a lot of like male pronouns as opposed to female pronouns when it's talking about people in general. And then I also think like there are more stories about men and how men are used of God versus women being used of God. So I think those are some reasons why a lot of people do say, oh well, yeah, the Bible or God, they're sexist. So, but I want to challenge you to maybe take a different look at the Bible. Yes, I agree there are like fewer stories about women, but the stories that are there about women I think are great. They're inspiring. Just off the bat, I think of the story of the virtuous woman. I know that's a cliche. Everybody's like, oh, I'm a virtuous woman, blah, blah, blah. But why is her story so inspiring, and why do so many people talk about it? It's not because she's married, okay? That's not why. It's because in a time where society put value on women who are married and that's it, she was more than that. She was more than a wife. She was a businesswoman. She was a go-getter. She ran her house, but she also ran businesses. And I think one of the telling things about her, even though we don't know her name or who she was, she didn't rely on her man to do those things. She was kind of independent of him when she was taking on those ventures. And so that's why I think of that story just immediately. Another good story I think is the story of Deborah. She was a judge, and in the Bible, back those days, judges were men typically. Judges had the power to decide cases, disputes between people, but they also could lead the Israelites into war. And Deborah, at a time where Israel definitely needed leadership and guidance, her initial call was to call a man to do the job. Well, the man was scared and he didn't want to do the job, so Deborah took over, and that was a calling that she received from God. So when we think of God being sexist, how could God be sexist and yet call a woman to take charge and fight for the people of Israel? So that's something to challenge you. Another good story is the story of Esther. And I think many people look at Esther like, oh, she was a bitty queen. She got married to a king, and that's why she's notable. But that's not why. She was really also a leader in her own right? So she was positioned through marriage to be a queen. But she didn't just accept that and just say, I'm a queen. You know, I'm happy in that role. I'm never gonna do anything that challenges that role. She took big risks to be a leader for her people, to stand up for what is right. And that's really encouraging to have that kind of story about women in the Bible. So that's great. Another thing I think about is Mary in the New Testament. Mary was a person who maybe men didn't value back then because she was a prostitute. We don't know why she was a prostitute. Maybe, I like to think that, you know, maybe she needed to provide for herself or her family. Anyhow, that didn't matter to the Lord. He rescued her when men were trying to stone her and judge her. Even the same men who maybe even slept with her and paid her for sex were trying to judge her. The Lord said, I don't judge you. And that's powerful. You know, God's saying, I don't judge you for your past. I don't judge you because you chose an alternative lifestyle. And that really shows us that the Lord is not sexist. And you know what? He stood up for Mary again in a very crucial role. Mary wanted to learn from the Lord, from Jesus, the same way men did. They learned of the Bible from him and thought of him as a rabbi or teacher of the Bible. That was something that was usually reserved for men, but here she was trying to learn like a man. And Martha tried to say, Jesus, tell her to go in the kitchen with me, tell her to work in the kitchen with me. And Jesus defended her and said, no, she's going to stay out here. She's chose the right thing. And so there's another instance of God in the person of his son standing up for women. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the pronoun. So a lot of the New Testament we hear about sons of God. We don't hear about women of God or daughters of God, but sons of God. And people think, well, oh, that's sexist. But I think of the time. Back in the day, sons, especially the first sons, were the ones that got the inheritance. They got all the money. And by God saying you are sons of God, even men and women, you're sons of God, it's saying, you know, despite your sex, you are an heir. You are of value. You are receiving valuable things from God. So it's not to say that women aren't recognized and their sex aren't recognized in the Bible or are somehow demonized in the Bible, but the Lord is using that term son to qualify us to receive good things from him. So why does this even matter? Why are we talking about this? I just want to challenge people to take a fresh look at the Bible. It's very easy to just hear what people are saying and say, oh, I'm going to write off God and the Bible is like sexist and not even relevant to our time. But I think you might be surprised what you find in the Bible, and I encourage you to look at it. I also have a blog post where I talk about some of the women I think are very inspiring from the Bible. I'll link that below.